Hello, and welcome to the week 12 video lecture. So this week is really about understanding reports while working with your group on building more of Project 4. Again, we're building this project piece by piece. It might feel slow, but that's on purpose so you don't get overwhelmed. Even this week, you don't have to complete certain parts of P4 because as you're going along, you're going to realize you're completing the parts with how I've scaffolded smaller homework assignments. So specifically for week 12, we're going to focus on the items on the screen. What do you think of when you see the word report or you hear the word report? Because in the business world, there are several different types of report. And this week, we are going to be focusing on a progress report because someone in your group will have to complete that. And throughout Project 4, we're underscoring the import of a recommendation report. Reports are a key communication tool in business. They effectively share and retain information and decisions. Because it's a recommendation for Project 4, the type of information inherent to the report hinges on a problem, which you've already carried over from the research summary assignment. And now your group is in need of a recommended solution based on research. Given the growing demand for technology and visual components, you and your group will work collaboratively to create a sort of storyboard approach to the recommendation report. Consider how the format of this report is expanded because you'll have to optimize it from simply text and a few visuals to instead a sort of web page to promote your solution and highlight the exigence or kairos of the situation. So this visual form of reporting expands the appeal, as I've stated, and it's going to help in building ethos, which in turn will make it easier for the audience to consider the logos you present. Speaking of ethos, let's talk about diplomacy in the workplace. And to put it in context, think about how you're communicating with each other throughout your group meetings and throughout collaborating on different facets of Project 4. When we're talking about diplomacy in the workplace. It's not just a theoretical, you're working with a group right now in a professional capacity, and you should consider what some of the tips I outline in this lecture. The way you phrase something in a professional setting is important for relaying tone. Rejection is something you might have to implement even in a professional setting, and it boils down to being let down and letting someone down. So you're either doling out the rejection or being rejected, and there's a way to do either one of those things. For the assignment homework that requires it, for day 2, the password is on the screen. Someone I consider an underrated anti-hero. Anyway. So when we're thinking about rejection, how to navigate it, let's review the scenario email on the screen. For the scenario, Luke has been part of a building committee for the past 6 weeks. He's been selecting new ideas based on collective feedback for a team that he manages. There were a lot of excellent ideas, and the final choice was between two extremely qualified team members, but he could only select one idea to move forward with. So what you're looking at on the screen, if you're scan reading it, think of how effective is Luke's diplomatic approach and how effective is his tone. If we were to analyze it, I would say that Luke wrote in his email style response to Mark about letting him know that his idea would not be selected, but he also kept the possibility open that Mark's ideas could be considered down the road. Luke did not make any promises because he had no way of knowing when or if another idea would be needed after all, but he didn't burn any bridges. So in this scenario, we see how Luke is letting someone down. We don't really see Mark's response. We don't see how to navigate being let down. But you could still kind of put yourself in those shoes and think of how you could respond in a generic way so that it doesn't come across as maybe too aggressive or even too passive. Consider how you may have to phrase an affirmative, but not aggressive, again, yes or no, depending on the professional situation. Rejection is going to come up in these group projects during a meeting, outside of a meeting. You're going to have to tell people no as a leader and perhaps assert a no as a group member. Consider how to respectfully and concisely do so before it happens. And as well, consider how to take the rejection so that you don't sound bitter, you don't sound angry. Think of how you could phrase it, or even just stay silent or just respectfully say, oh, okay, I see your point. Kind of mimic these responses in your head so that you're prepared when it happens, because it's going to happen, trust me. Moving on with solutions, because that's part of this week and that's part of Project 4. Fixing things may sound easy, or maybe it sounds hard. In the professional world, you'll be tasked on a regular basis to solve problems. Some of these problems may be big or small. P4 problem is larger in scale, and thus it requires a multi-step solution, which includes articulation. So what is really the problem? Can you describe it? You should be able to. How sustainable is the solution that you've researched? And is it based on past solutions? Why is that past solution so great or so bad? And how does it relate to yours? And more specifically, why is the solution your group, that your group created out of the research, why is it the best? Also consider contingencies in case your solution doesn't pan out due to time constraints. Your budget might not get approved or something might fall through. You should have 1 or 2 ideas of a contingency. And sometimes finding a solution means thinking about the impacted population, because your solution is probably going to change their lives, hopefully for the better. Additionally, this week includes meeting with your team for a second time. That should take place by April 1st. You should review the student samples that are in the modules and the Project 4 guidelines during this meeting to further help with decision-making and allocating of tasks. I also suggest for each meeting, you should create an agenda to keep you on track. That can be as informal as the bullet point list you see on the screen. It helps to email something like this to members before a meeting so they can know what to expect, and they can maybe prepare responses or materials. An agenda like this will also keep the meeting from lasting too long in theory. Remember how there's different kinds of reports. This week, someone in your group will get the chance to create a progress report, and that report should outline what occurred during the second team meeting There's other notable benchmarks per the assignment guidelines. So take note of that. In a very basic sense, your imagined higher authority, your boss for the project, they need to know the state of the work completed thus far and where the project is headed in the upcoming weeks. And you can see an example on the screen of a proper progress report. You can find templates. On Microsoft Word, you can find templates. On Canva, as long as the template has a title and it's not just kind of a listing of stuff, it should at the very least say progress report or project report, like the one on the screen. So let's review the module to see where the day 2 assignments are going to take us. Zoom in a little bit. So week 12 has understanding concepts, describing a lot of what we talked about. Student samples, I put it in a separate module section to make them more accessible, and let me know if some of the links don't work, but you can review these with your group to get a better idea of expectations and knowing that you don't have to have anything like this outlined or completed just yet. So there's 2 items here that only 2 people in the group have to worry about. So remember that task list I had you fill out already, and you put someone's name next to each item. So only 2 of the, let me move this stupid box. Only 2 of these things are being completed from the list for week 12, and only 2 people from your group are going to be graded. So maybe Ariana was assigned the group progress report, and if she doesn't turn it in, no one else in the group is affected, and no one should be hounding her about that because it's only on her grade. And then if Jordan was assigned this, he's the only one responsible for it. If he doesn't submit it, it's only on his grade, and no one has to give team input for any of these. Only the individual people need to complete these. They can ask for group support or help. It's not necessary, and it might even slow things down. So the group progress report that only one person in the group is responsible for should look something like the sample. It should be telling your boss what happened during the team meeting, things that you've completed so far. And then it should also, and you can just highlight this and use it on your own progress report if you want, a list of all the parts of project 4. And that means the smaller kind of mechanical parts of it, like the abstract, the map, who's going to complete which part of the recommendation report. I want specific names next to it. Ideally, everyone will be responsible for one image and one text-based part. And that will help you later when there's a different assignment requiring everyone in the group to complete an image for the report. So a Gantt chart is an image. The solution requires an image. That should say GIF instead of video, but there should be, I think, 5 images. So, and the budget is a sort of image. So this is a sample, and I think this is from Canva. You can use the same template if you want, but try to cover all of these different parts when you're creating your group progress report. And the group task list is different from this task list. The task list you need to include as part of the progress report is what I described. It's a work plan for the recommendation report. And you can make it look as fancy as this. It's all the parts of P4, but it might be different because this is from a different semester and I've changed a few things. But you get the idea. You have the different parts of it and they assign someone's name next to it. Hopefully every person has at least 2 items, maybe not inundating, like Mohammed has so many things here. He had maybe too many. So that the balance of work is equal. So we have that due by April 1st at 11:59 p.m. on Canvas. Another Canvas assignment for one person in the group only is a social justice component. And that means whatever your problem is, and these are examples of past problems, there's probably a social justice component, or I would say maybe spin, that you can place on your issue. And that might be if you place it in an underserved community, it kind of then becomes a social justice issue. If you're thinking of it through the lens of a certain group, like, I don't know, new mothers, or economically challenged women, or a low funded school, I don't know, something like that, then you've kind of taken your problem, your topic, and implemented. You put on your social justice sunglasses and you can see the problem through some component of social justice. If you're very confused about this, you can reach out to me way before. You can review this website for definitions of social justice. I can't talk sometimes. Ultimately, what you're doing is finding a source related to your topic, solution, or problem that in some way touches on a social justice component of your topic, problem, or solution. You're going to include a hyperlink, endnote, or footnote for that source that you found somewhere in your response. Let me get a template opened up for this. Okay. So you're going to find some online article or video, YouTube, TED Talk, I don't care, something that deals with your problem solution through the lens of social justice in some way. Maybe you found an article via Twitter. Maybe that might be an easy way to find it. And then answer these questions about that source that you looked up. And additionally, look up a picture that somehow relates to your topic and to the source that you found. So maybe if it's a topic about economic equality in some way, maybe that picture really fits with it. And I'm using Pixabay because it's a copyright-free image, and whatever image you find needs to be copyright-free. Maybe you're going to use Wiki Commons or another website you know where you can find a copyright-free image, but in some way it fits with your social justice source that you found. And you're also going to caption it according to the standards that you've already learned from Project 2. And somehow in one of your answers to these questions, you're going to include a hyperlink, a footnote, or an endnote, which will cite the source that you found. And I'll know that you actually looked up a source and you're not just answering this off the top of your head, and you shouldn't be. So that's what you have to submit for that assignment. Answering questions from a source based off a social justice component of your problem, and then including a properly captioned image at the top or at the bottom, wherever you want to include it. And one more thing that everyone in the group will have to submit on their own. So if you don't submit this, it won't impact the group grade either. So really nothing from this week is collaborative. You still have to meet with your group to talk about who is going to complete which part of Project 4. And you still should meet with your group to keep track of just just everything and decide, are we going to use Sway, Prezi, or Adobe Spark for the template of the project 4. So the assignment that everyone has to complete on their own is coming up with their own source for a solution. And it's very similar to what I just showed you for the social justice component, except that you have to find an additional source, and you still have to include a hyperlink, footnote, endnote somewhere in your answers about your source. So there's 6 answers to your questions about your source here. Except now you, I did not copy these, except now for this assignment, you do not have to include an image. I don't think I had you do that. No. So answer questions about the source you found. It doesn't have to be a social justice solution at all. It just has to be talking about a past problem and solution that was implemented in a different city or even the same city. And I want everyone in the group to complete this on their own. No one in the group should be submitting the same answers because they use the same article or they use the same video. This is so that you and your group get different ideas of what could be the best solution, so that eventually when you meet next and you talk about your ideas for solution, it'll be based off this multifaceted network of research that you completed, 4 or 5 ideas of a solution, and then you patchwork it, you sew together your idea, your group idea for what is the solution eventually when you draft that for the report. And some of these answers, when you're patchworking that together, you can use some of this text in project for the recommendation report itself later on. And then at the bottom or top of this draft, we include the password from the video lecture. Judith Negan. So if you have questions or thoughts about week 12, please reach out to me before the due dates, and I'll see you for week 13.